Good evening. I'm Jim Lehrer. On the NewsHour tonight, a summary of the news, the latest on the diplomatic struggle over news, Security Council resolution on Iraq, the poll reports on Iraqi refugees in Yemen, Jordan, and on a city council debate in Salem, Oregon, plus the weekly analysis of Mark Shields and Paul Chidet making a return substitution tonight for David Brooks, who is off tonight.
Major funding for the NewsHour with Jim Lehrer has been provided by
Imagine a world to come.
And by SBC Communications, committed to providing Americans more choices in high-speed internet access and working to widen opportunities in broadband technology. As providers, as people, we're SBC Communications.
This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Iraq confirmed today it was ready to begin destroying some advanced missiles, starting tomorrow. But it asked thru technical assistance to do the job. Then Chief Inspector Hans Blitz said it could be a very significant move. He said he had written to Baghdad for clarification of its plans. France and Germany said the Iraqi decision was proof that inspections can work. But the United States and Britain dismissed it as more against diplomatic maneuvers continued in the Security Council today. The EU, Britain, and Spain have offered a new resolution to pave the way for using force against Iraq. Russia warned today it had not ruled out using its veto, but the Associated Press reported Pakistan was likely to support the resolution. Officially, Pakistan said it remains undecided. Bush signaled today that a decision to go to war was near. He told USA Today that Saddam Hussein would have disarmed by now if that's what he meant to do. Mr. Bush said, "We will disarm him when the US military prepared to send B-stealth bombers and a 6th aircraft carrier to the Persian Gulf." We'll have more on the Iraq story in a moment. Dozens of Filipinos took to the streets of Manila today to protest any war with Iraq. We have a report from Zena Bano of Associated Press Television News.
President Uriel has attracted wide criticism at home. It is home troops assisting in a crackdown on rebels. The march was organized by Catholics, the country's prominent religion. Once thought that war could have adverse effects on the already struggling Philippines economy.
It will cause a lot of big problems in our country. One thing is that economic crisis will again rise.
The demonstrators went to the grandstand to listen to the religious leaders.
We all desire peace. We all want peace. We are born for peace.
American officials, including Vice President Teofilo Gingunna, defended the rally. Troops were also on standby for trouble, but along with their anti-war message, the estimated marchers rallied peacefully.
Thousands of people also marched today in the Arab nations of Bahrain, Egypt, and Yemen. They demanded to use drop plans to invade Iraq. Several Arab foreign ministers today read to use calls to press Saddam Hussein into stepping down. They did so at a meeting in Egypt ahead of a weekend summit of the Arab League. The group of 20 nations has so far failed to reach consensus on the issue of war. In Pakistan today, a gunman killed a Pakistani policeman guarding the American consulate in Karachi. At least 5 other people were wounded. None are Americans. Police arrested the gunman and said he was linked with a Muslim extremist group. Last June, the car bomb at the same consulate killed 12 Pakistanis. The US military released a proposed list of crimes today that could lead to military tribunals for terror suspects. They included, among others, terrorism, rape, hijackings, and the use of prisons. Officials said the list met accepted definitions of war crimes under international law. It will be finalized in several weeks after a period of public comment. The superintendent of the Air Force Academy promised today to fix problems at the school in a scandal over sexual attacks. Female cadets have claimed they were ignored or reprimanded after reporting assaults. Last night, the Secretary of the Air Force addressed some cadets in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He warned that major changes were coming.
Will not tolerate any retribution against any victim. It is reprehensible for breakers for someone who would sexually assault a woman or anyone who protects these bums. To become leader of their men.
At least for you, senators have now called for an independent inquiry into the matter. An independent board complained today that some top NASA employees are too much involved in the space shuttle investigation. The Associated Press reported the board is concerned about people who played lead roles in the Columbia mission. A spokeswoman said the board sent a letter to the space agency asking that some of those people be reassigned. The Food and Drug Administration proposed warning labels today for the popular ephedra. It's widely used in dietary supplements, but the DME said it can cause heart attacks, strokes, and even death. A medical examiner has ruled it probably figured in the death this month of Steve Beckler, the pitcher with the Baltimore Orioles. The herb is already banned in the Olympics, college athletics, and the National Football League. The economy grew more than previously thought at the end of 2002. The Commerce Department reported today that gross domestic product increased % from October through December. That's double the original estimate. On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 6 points at close at 7,891. The Nasdaq rose more than 13 points at close above 1,337. For the month of February, the Dow was down 1%, the Nasdaq gained 1%. And that's it for the news summary tonight. Now it's on to an Iraqi diplomacy update to possible war stories. From Amman, Jordan, and Salem, Oregon, Ben Thanas is of S.H.I.E.L.D. in Gibbet. Where the diplomatic war over a possible real war with Iraq stands this Friday night, and Therese Suarez.
Because Iraq promised to destroy its Gazman missiles, the diplomatic front lines deep in the Security Council over how to disarm Saddam Hussein's government. For the first time, Russia threatened to use its veto power. Speaking at a news conference while visiting China, Russian Foreign Minister Ibrahim warned Russia would not support a resolution which could lead to war.
Russia has the right to veto on the United Nations Security Council and will use it if it is necessary in the interests of international stability. But first, if you use the veto power, you should fully understand the responsibilities of it before using it. It can only be used for international peace and stability.
Heavy attention was focused on Iraq's Gazman missiles. Weapons inspectors determined they are able to hit targets further away than allowed by your resolutions and ordered them destroyed. Chief Weapons Inspector Hans Blix told reporters that Iraq's decision to destroy the missiles ahead of a Saturday deadline is an important step.
Well, it's a very big chunk of things. There are very many of these missiles and a lot of items that pertain to them, which we have enumerated in our letter, which is to be destroyed. So it is a very significant piece of real disarmament.
Blix was also asked about the report he submitted today on the progress of inspections in Iraq. He's scheduled to update the Security Council on March 7th.
The report you're submitting is being quoted as saying that the Iraqis are offering only very limited cooperation. Could you talk about that?
When this report was written, I had to note that while they had taken a number of steps which might help us to establish facts about questions that are still open, they had not come to fruition yet. And the same applied to the missiles, that there was a letter from us about it, but it had not yet taken place. So, by next week, when I'm introducing my report in the Security Council, here are surely going to be more. The Iraqis are, at the present time, very active, I would say, and we'll see next week then what our report, in addition to the written report.
In Paris, the French Foreign Minister applauded Iraq's agreement to destroy the missiles. Dominique Villepin said it confirms that your weapons inspections work.
For France today, a second resolution is premature. I will remind you that it was envisaged by the UN in the case of an impasse. This is not the case today. There is therefore no reason to abandon the peaceful way of Iraqi disarmament.
But British Prime Minister Tony Blair dismissed Iraq's offer. He spoke at a news conference in Madrid after meeting with Spain's Prime Minister José María Aznar.
This is not a time for games. He knows perfectly well what he has to do. He has to say what has happened. For example, to the leaders of interest, the 360 tons of chemical warfare agent, the tons of precursor chemicals, the special munitions, all of which the inspectors found were uncounted for Iraq when they were forced to leave a few years ago.
Aznar added that Saddam was playing a very cruel game. The Iraqi ambassador to the United Nations said he can Baghdad is doing its utmost to cooperate with inspectors.
We are doing our utmost. This is what we have. We cannot give Mr. Lex more than what we have. You cannot give somebody something which you are not in possession of that thing. So what we are doing is to cooperate, fully proactive cooperation, and we are still continuing this cooperation for the future. It is a question of principle. I told you that we would avert war by all means.
But at the White House, spokesman Eric Fleischer said Iraq's move still fell short.
Total disarmament is total disarmament is total disarmament. It's not a piece of disarmament. As I said the other day, if somebody takes one bullet out of the chamber of a gun while they have 6 other bullets in the gun, they haven't disarmed. They've merely put one bullet aside while they still have five that can kill you. That's the analogy here that is at play.
Fisher said the administration was confident of getting support from other members in the Security Council for a new and planned resolution on Iraq. The Security Council has been divided over what to do next. This week, there was heated debate over the upside resolution that would offer as a warrant a French proposal to continue with the weapons inspections. Meanwhile, Turkey's top military and political leaders met to discuss a plan to base tens of thousands of Jews. Troops in Turkey. The ruling Justice and Development Party has deferred a parliamentary vote on the matter until tomorrow. In Egypt, the Arab world's leaders and foreign ministers began arriving for this weekend's Asian Arab meeting. League members rejected have asked for news. Secretary of State Colin Powell today suggesting their Saddam Hussein to step down. For more now on the state of diplomatic affairs at the United Nations, we get to views. John Riley was Assistant Secretary at the United Nations from 1997 to 2001. He's now Professor of International Affairs at Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. Max Boone is a Senior Fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. He's written extensively on international relations and is the author of The Savage Wars of Peace, Small Wars, and the Rise of American Power. Professor Riley, today the Russians hinted that they are closer to stating their intentions on the new resolution. The Pakistanis confirmed that they wouldn't vote against it. If you're keeping a score chart, this is the shape of the final vote becoming more clear.
Not quite. I don't think that everybody is quite there yet. There are 60 swing votes, mostly small and poor countries, and they would rather not be on the spot. They would rather this issue go away, and they haven't made up their mind yet. There's a joker in the deck that's emerged just in the last 24 hours, and that is a Canadian proposal, which would be a compromise of sorts between these and British resolution on the one hand, and the German British proposal on the other. What is specific about it and unique about it is that it would actually set a definite date for the head of inspections and for a ministerial meeting at the Security Council on March 31 to make a final decision.
Now, China is not a member of the Security Council. Give us a process explanation. How does it get to the table as it work and get to the same spot as the Bristol-France's proposal, which those are 3 members of the Security Council?
Well, there's only one formal proposal, and that is the British and Spanish proposal. Then there's a so-called memorandum which the French and the Germans and the Russians have circulated. The Canadians' proposal is even more informal and it's floating around the corridors, but it doesn't take very much to get someone to bring it into the chamber in informal consultations. But the action isn't simply in New York. The action is also out in the capitals of those 60 swing votes. Guinea, for example, is one of the world's poorest countries, and they're about to play a major walk-on role in history because tomorrow on March 1, they become president of the Security Council. They have been visited by British and American officials offering help with Guinea's problems, which Guinea has been hoping for many years and hasn't received. Other countries, the cameras are also on the council, are also looking to the US for certain kinds of help. Envoys looking to the US for help. It is turning into a bit of a yard sale, as it were, back in the capitals. And at the moment, the debate in the council is a bit circular and waiting for instructions from back home. At the end of the day, dudes may count 9 votes, but not because other countries necessarily agree with the United States, but because they don't want to get run over by a train they can't stop.
Matt, how do the lines that are being drawn up in the Security Council look to you?
The first thing to say, Ray, is that this whole process is a little bit unseemly. I mean, this is kind of like the wheeling and dealing you see before an appropriations bill passes the Senate. You want senator so and so's vote, so you offer him a water project for another person's vote, and you offer him a park or something like that. This is the kind of wheeling and dealing which is going on, which is a little bit silly because we are discussing very serious issues of war and peace. But unfortunately, this is a byproduct of the Bush administration's strategy, which is to go for another resolution that they all told now on Iraq, and that gives an inordinate amount of power to countries like Cameroon and Guinea and others who do not normally figure very large in the affairs of the world. To me, this seems to be a very high-risk strategy, which may pay on off, but also has a very high risk of failure. I'm not sure why they are doing this, because you have prominent Democrats like Dick Holbrooke saying they don't need to get another resolution. Resolution 1441 was very strong. It was passed by a unanimous vote. And I think everybody pretty much agrees that Iraq is not living up to 1441. It has not fully disarmed. They may have made a small show of destroying some missiles, which they are going to do perhaps tomorrow, but they have really not fully disarmed. Based on that, I think the United States and its allies would be fully justified in upholding 1441 and taking military action against Saddam Hussein, but the Bush administration has decided to gamble, partly in order to shield its allies in Britain and Turkey and elsewhere by trying to get another resolution, and as Prof. Broggy says, it's anybody's guess how this will turn out.
He's safe to shield its eyes. Could it also be to firm up domestic public opinion?
I don't think this is going to be a huge domestic opinion. I think if you look at the public opinion polls, they show that people are solidly behind the administration in this, what might be this coming war. I think it's largely to provide cover for Tony Blair and the Turks and various others. But to me this seems a somewhat short-sighted strategy, because I think ultimately the kind of political hit that our allies will take will depend almost entirely on how the war goes. If it goes well, there are not going to be any recriminations afterhand. Nobody is going to remember how many resolutions there were. American troops are greeted as liberators if they are successful. I think everybody will immediately forget that they opposed the war, and it will be greeted with public acclamation. If, on the other hand, the war goes badly, I don't think any number of UN resolutions are going to be sufficient to shield Tony Blair or other leaders who have taken a courageous stand from the consequences of their actions.
Professor Reggie, this week the Aggies said yes, they would go ahead with starting tomorrow the destruction of the Unmanned missiles. Hans Blix called it a significant piece of disarmament, and it was almost immediately dismissed in Washington by the British Prime Minister. What do you rate in that?
Well, it's part of the joint and free that's going on right now. It is a significant piece of disarmament, but it is only one piece. The analogy that the White House used yesterday, I believe, is taking a bullet out of a gun. It is insufficient, and in fact, Hans Blix's report that has gone to the Council just this evening indicates also that thus far, the disarmament efforts have been relatively limited. But at the same time, this is a non-trivial development. The Iraqis, after all, they did layer these missiles. They were discovered by the inspectors crawling around in nooks and crannies in Iraq.
Max, dude, the missiles are an important part of this whole story for you.
I don't think they're that important. I think that Iraq is doing the minimal necessary in order not to give France a reason to jump off the bandwagon and to wind up supporting another UN resolution. I think they're doing just enough to get by. But as Tony Blair said, you know, it's very nice that they're going to destroy the missiles. But what about the thousands of tons of chemical and biological weapons which we know they have, which they haven't accounted for? And also point about that very compelling presentation that Sec Paul made to the Security Council. I think that tends to get forgotten, that he presented very compelling evidence of how Iraq is trying to hinder the weapon inspectors, how it is trying to hide its weapons, and how it also is now linked to Al-Qaeda. The evidence is still out there, and I think that is very troubling to see and remains unaddressed in any way by the Iraqi authorities. Any serious way.
Well, tomorrow, Max Boot, the Turkish parliament is set forward and has been scheduled to vote anyway on the permission to misuse troops in advance of an attack on Iraq on Turkey, so the critical vote for the United States.
Absolutely. I think the Turks will ultimately be there with us in the end. They clearly extracted the maximum concessions out of this process they could possibly get. This goes back to the bizarre sale aspect of this thing. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, the Turks know at the end of the day that their interests lie with the United States. And if they want to say in passport Iraq, and if they're worried about the development of the Kurdish autonomous zone in Iraq, they better be on board with the coalition and be allied with the United States and the process going forward if they want to have a say in how the peace is shaped.
Professor Reggie, is there a chance for a surprise from the Turks? This vote has been delayed several times. There has been a rise in war public opinion in Turkey after some reluctance from the party generals who, according to the Constitution, have a big part in making the decision.
I think this is a very hard decision for Turkey, as it is a hard decision for Pakistan when they have to cast a vote on the Security Council. But I think Max Boot is right that in the end, the Turks will probably come through. The issue should not be framed, I don't believe, however, as one between doing nothing and allowing Saddam to get away with continued cheating or immediately supporting the United States resolution. The members of the Security Council yesterday, in a very acrimonious discussion, tried to make it clear that very few among them have any kind of sense that Iraq is not cheating, that Iraq should not be stopped. The issue is, can we bring the rest of the Security Council along with us? Can we wait for them to catch up? Is another month possible? That was the tone of the discussion yesterday. Not whether Saddam should get away with things or not.
And is your sense of it, Max Blake, that this vote is coming soon after the next Blake's report, which comes a week from today?
It's hard to say. If the votes aren't there, there is not going to be a vote. The US and Britain will just yank the resolution. If they feel the votes are there, they probably will seek a vote soon after Hans Blitz's report on March 7th. At the point that Prof. Brody just made about not wanting to rush into things and wait to get agreement on the Security Council, I'm not sure you are going to have unanimity. This process has been going on for 12 years now. Many resolutions have been passed, 17 altogether, and there is still not unanimity despite the fact that, as Prof. Rugby says everybody agrees that Saddam Hussein is not living up to the 17 resolutions, but despite that, there is still deep divisions over what to do about it, and ultimately, I think that the French simply, in particular France, to a lesser extent Russia, simply do not want to take military action against Iraq, and maybe they will acquiesce in the end and abstain and not use their veto, but it is going to be a very close run thing because they've staked out their position very clearly over the past decade, which is against military action.
And quickly, Prof, Buddy, what do you hear about the state of vote, Professor?
It is hard to say because we are a week away and anything can happen, but my prediction would be that we would get 9 votes and there will not be any vetoes. I think in the end, France will also abstain.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Still to come on the NewsHour tonight, the Iraq War reports, one from M.N. Jordan, the other from Salem, Oregon, plus Mark Shields and Paul did it. Our pro reports. First, some Iraqi views of the situation in Baghdad. New York Times foreign correspondent John Burns caught with refugees in M.N. Jordan.
Jordan is an interesting place to be right now as war between the United States and Iraq approaches. Here in Amman, we are about 600 miles southwest of Baghdad, and because of the political geography, Iraqis seeking to flee Saddam Hussein flee southwest of Jordan, and many of them end up in Amman, the capital of Jordan, where we are now. The present estimate is that there are about Iraqi migrants living in Amman, a few many of them illegal migrants, a few many of them subject to being rounded up by the Jordanian police and returned back to Iraq. They tend to congregate in the old city of Amman in tenement buildings. They go out in search of casual labor, selling cigarettes, selling Iraqi souvenirs. These people are fleeing for a number of reasons, almost all of them quite respectable. They're fleeing the terror of Saddam Hussein, and of course they are fleeing the draft.
My name is Hadi Abdullah Jassim al-Azadi, and I'm from Basra, southern Iraq. And I was born in 1958.
مواليد 1958. من كنت بالعراق تعلمت مهنة.
My work is in a restaurant cooking cabbage.
الحمد لله عايش بهاي العيشة المتواضعة.
I live a very simple life.
عائلتي خبروني إنه
The most important thing is that I have a better life here because life was worse back in Iraq.
حتى يعيش الإنسان بكرامته. يعني الإنسان اللي ما متوفر له لا غذاء.
We don't have food. We don't have freedom and dignity. I am comparing myself with animals.
بين أي مع احترامي لكم أي حيوان.
Even animals in European countries have more rights than we do in Iraq.
I've found myself with the life constantly in terror, in fear, in consequence, which for correspondents like myself, finding true horses in Iraq itself is not easy. It's not impossible. The appeal of famine, which is a holding place for many of us on our trips in and out of Iraq, is that there are horses available absent the terror. They feel not completely absent the terror, as anyone who takes a camera amongst them discovers, because even here the Iraqis see good police operating, but they have a tremendous yearning to tell their truth, and the truth is the terrible truth.
My name is Salam Abdel Aljali. Unfortunately, I hold an Iraqi nationality. I came 3 months ago. I work in a coffee shop. Life in Jordan is much easier than the life in Baghdad. I was looking for better options, but I'm satisfied with my life here. The situation in Baghdad is very sad. I lost my 2 newborn babies, a boy and a girl. They told me they died, but they killed them. As a Muslim, I believe in death, but they killed them in the hospital.
يعني بعد ما شخص اجى قال لي من المستشفى نفسه.
They were very healthy. I saw them, but they want to kill them to show the world what the sanctions are doing to our kids. When I came the next day, They told me that my babies were dead.
We have to remember that these are people who have emerged from a country where the media is rigidly controlled. So everything they know about the United States, or almost everything they know, has been filtered to them through a state-controlled media. This is not to say that it's all wrong, but it's a long, long way from being true to. In a sense, the sense of America has been as distorted as the sense of Iraq itself in the Iraqi media. There is a widespread distrust of the United States over the issue of the Palestinian struggle. This, of course, you would find replicated throughout the Arab world. There is a widespread suspicion that the United States, in preparing for war against Saddam, is in pursuit of Iraq's oil fields. This is the point that has been pressed on the Iraqi people throughout this crisis. The interesting and to me critical point, at least in my encounters with Iraqi migrants here, was when I said, all right, the America you're talking about is not the real America. This is Saddam's America as filtered through the press. But let's assume that this is the real America. Is this the country that you would wish to liberate you?
Don't imagine any individual Iraqi would hate to see Americans. Every Iraqi wants to see Americans, but they keep their feelings inside. They cannot talk. I was there 3 months ago, when I went to bring my family to Jordan. Every single Iraqi was asking, where are the Americans? Where are the Americans? Not only Americans, but any power just to get rid of him, Saddam. Don't think we're not going to welcome Americans in our country.
Poor report number to Spencer Michel's reports from Salem, Oregon.
We're also talking about inflaming world opinion with a preemptive attack on Iraq.
The possibility of war in Iraq catch up with divided the people of Salem, Oregon, where more than 200 of them packed a recent city council meeting to debate a resolution opposing unilateral use military action. Salem is used to disagreement and divisions, but usually the issues are local.
Good morning. Donna Devine with Quayside Oil Company.
Good morning. Lisa Whitey with Glass Optics and Eyewear.
These are members of the Salem Downtown Association, meeting recently agreeing on quoted for us for morning coffee and discussion of a hot button issue, the revitalization of downtown. Businessman Mayor Janet Taylor was the speaker.
There has been divisiveness downtown and throughout the community, and it is time to let go of it.
The mayor, who owns a metal factory, won her job by portraying her opponents as divisions. But while those divisions persist, the town has been concentrating on laying down the threat of war.
I would view it as a very balanced city. People on both sides of the war issue. So very much a reflection of, I think, our whole country.
At Oregon state capital, located along the Willamette River, south of Portland, Salem is a town of people. Many of its traditions are rural and conservative. Voters are about evenly split, Democrat and Republican. In 2000, the area gave George Bush a slight edge over Al Gore. It is a peaceful place where a carousel with wooden horses, hand-carted by townspeople. This is the pride of the city, but Salem's tranquility seems to be in jeopardy.
How Bush's war has got to go.
In mid-February, about people rallied and marched through the town, opposing war and criticizing Bush's policies. Although there is no local TV station, and Portland stations ignored the demonstration. Peace activist, attorney, and former Mayor Michael Swing said the march was important.
The usual demonstration brings about 300 or 400 people. You would be astounded. People maybe a record.
I was a significant number then.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. The question is whether it is a critical mass, and I'm beginning to believe it might be.
Other opinions on that, George Fuentes, who owns the successful tortilla factory in Salem and is president of the Chamber of Commerce. He's a former city councilor who, like the mayor, is pro-business and a supporter of George Bush.
I just think people they're upset about many things, and I think it's manifesting itself in these peace marches.
You think that's true in Salem as well?
I think that's very true even here in Salem. And again, the fact that we're people, and we get people at the peace marches, to me, is not overwhelming support.
So I'm definitely going to support the resolution.
At the council meeting, Anna Brown explained why she had brought an annual resolution to a body more upon debating zoning laws.
A lot of people think that taking this issue on at this point is unpatriotic. And that saddens me, because that means you can't speak up. And I don't know when there's a time when you can speak up, if not now.
before the bombs are done.
I move for the adoption of resolution number 10 series of 2048.
The resolution cited other cities this is Denver that had passed similar measures against the war. In fact, about 120 cities have taken such action, while about a dozen voted them down. So, with a newly elected conservative majority on the council, reluctantly devoted nearly 3 hours listening to tons of evaluate national policy.
We've got to support our president. We've got to support our country. And the people that are over there fighting this war, or possibly, we have got to support them.
As cities like this had taken a stand at this point where we were in the Vietnam War, and thousands of my brothers who died in Vietnam would still be alive today.
Can you summarize, sir?
There's our try to keep the dominating species evenly divided on the anti-war resolution, but the anti-war contingent at the meeting was considerably larger.
Patriotism should never be blind, nor should we sacrifice the lives of our sons or daughters in blind obedience to our government.
As an active member of my church, I am deeply troubled by the loss of life that is going to occur, and it won't just be military. It will be thousands and thousands of Iraqi citizens.
You folks here tonight saying a word, but your message comes through to the troops is we don't support you and we don't care about you. I'm sorry. That is the truth.
And Salem, we don't have enough firemen on our fire trucks.
Several speakers scolded the council for even taking up a national issue.
I'm offended that the council would seek to speak on my behalf on an issue so very far out of its purview. That's my job. Thank you.
The old veteran was angered by the anti-war contingent, who reminded him of when he returned from Vietnam.
One hour after I got home, I was set on by the same people that are carrying signs out there today.
I did not spit on anyone from Vietnam. I want to prevent another Vietnam. That is why I'm here today.
I know that when our federal government spends money in war, it is taken away from the children and the social services that need it the most.
After more than 70 statements, the councilors had their say.
I didn't vote for George Bush, and if there was an election held today, I wouldn't vote for him again. But given the choice of trusting the leaders of my country and trusting the leaders of the Iraqi government, I have to trust my own country, and I'll be opposing their resolution.
Hansel Wes Bennett is an Air Force veteran, a retired engineer, and a Republican.
I came here tonight prepared to vote against this resolution. I think that the thing that rises to the top of the list is the voice of the people, and I'm impressed by the number of people that came out here tonight, and I'm going to vote in favor of the resolution.
Bear Taylor, who as a businesswoman had met last summer with President Bush, defended American military action.
I think of it as a defensive measure against Set 11. It was determined courtesy, please. It was determined that the Al-Qaeda came from Iraq. Some of them. I cannot support this resolution. I will be voting against it. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. That would be Brown, Woolen, and Bennett.
Three councilors voted in favor, but the crowd burned silent. 1-6 councilors, including the mayor, voted no and defeated the anti-war resolution. At the Salem Statesman Journal the next morning, editorial page editor Hughes said he wasn't surprised by the vote, but Hughes said he was surprised by the strength of our sentiment in the town. Letters to the editor have been running to 2-1 against war.
Certainly a large number of people whom I'm surprised are opposed to the war. We're very concerned about it, at least that are we doing the right thing? If there is this much concern in Salem, it really raises questions about what's happening elsewhere in the country. I would have expected Salem to be letter writers to say we support our president. What are those protesters doing?
Even though his son lost in the council, former Mayor Swing sees parallels between the Iraq protests and those against the Vietnam War.
One thing we learned from the Vietnam experience was that it is possible for the common, everyday, ordinary people to change foreign policy if there are enough of them that feel passionately about the cause.
Is that what's happening now in Salem?
And I think that's what's happening now in Salem. Absolutely.
There's Los Angeles, Philadelphia.
Councils in many cities around the country are still trying to decide whether to delay the possible war. About 100 of them have scheduled those discussions in the next few weeks.
And finally tonight, the analysis of Shields and Gibbet, That's right, Shields and Jiggett, syndicated columnist Mark Shields, and joining him tonight is his former sparring partner, Paul Jiggett, now editor of the Wall Street Journal editorial page. David Brooks is off tonight. Welcome back. Good to see you, Paul.
Great to be here, Jim.
First on our often old review, we had a discussion at the beginning of the program about the state of play towards war. How do you read it right now, Paul?
I think we're seeing everything come together so that we really are on the brink of a decision to go on war. I think domestically the president has made a more expansive case this week in a speech. I think internationally, you're seeing the coalition coalesce. You see, the Saudis now let America use the bases. The Turks look like they're going to make a decision to allow us down the northern front. Blair had a vote of support in his parliament this week. And of course, the United Nations, I think, is moving towards at least a majority vote in the Security Council of support. So I think in that sense, we're very close.
Very close, Mark.
I think we are, Jim, but what is intriguing, watching that piece and the use of the statesman, the Salem statesman saying that his letters have run to one against the intensity and the passion that this seems to be against the war. There is no doubt about it, and it certainly is. I mean, Paul mentioned Tony Blair. The reason we are going back to them is for Tony Blair because he needed domestically, Mesner in Spain, a strong supporter of the president, said keep Donald Rumsfeld out. I want more Colin Powell, and I need that. I need your statement on the Middle East so you have things being done with the sense that the popular support around is not there, that it is divided here at home. The majority still supports the president, but there is a sense of inevitability that we are going to war.
That the public is being heard, do you think?
I don't know if the public is being heard. I don't know if there is a question of really measuring intensity in this.
Sure.
They say we want to go, but we would like to go if we have a coalition with us and more nations with us, and if they give more time to inspections and so forth. It is not a stampede to war on the part of public opinion.
When has a democracy ever had a stampede for war? Jim, I mean, very rarely if the democracies are very messy and war is the most momentous decision a government can make. I'm really actually pleased that there is an awful lot of debate and discussion about this. I would be upset if there was a stampede that we hadn't thought about. I think it's good that Bush has had to make his case, but it is not surprising that these leaders are having to make their cases to their public, and it is a difficult case to make.
All right. Speaking of it, you mentioned the president's speech this week where he laid out the connection between going after Sodom and democracy, not only in Iraq, but in the entire region. What do you think? What did you think of his case?
I think it was a good case and one he had to make, Jim. It answered domestic critics like Joe Biden and Joe Lieberman, who had the fair critique that the president had been focusing mostly on making the case for war and not what comes after. Of course, you have to talk about what comes after, and the president had to tell Americans, this isn't going to be 30 days. This is going to be a long time, and here's what we are going to have to undertake. He also had to do this, I think, to talk to Iraqis. There had been a lot of debate about whether the U.S. is going to have U.S. leader there, whether there is going to be a general or something. He said, look, this is not just about American conquest. This is not just about us gunning it up. This is about us helping you and liberating your country, and we are going to be there and help you rebuild it. I think he had to make that case.
Do you think he did? Do you think he made it?
I think he made a very good start at it, yes.
What do you think?
Jim, what has fascinated me about this whole debate has been how it has shifted each time with the objective. It was defanging Saddam Hussein, and then it was divulging Saddam Hussein, and then it was protecting us against an imminent threat from Iraq, and now it turns out enforcing resolutions. Now it turns out that it is to bring democracy to the Middle East. I don't know anybody serious who believes that the way to peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis lies in the invasion and occupation of Baghdad. I really don't. I mean, I've talked to people who fought there, who have been there, who spent their lives involved there. The president did lay it out. Paul is right, and I think it is something he had to do. I think the analogy to Germany after World War II, Germany had a democracy prior to Hitler, and then had the Marshall Plan. There is no mention of the Marshall Plan. The administration doesn't want to talk about costs. I mean, Paul Wolf always basically said, no, we don't have any figures, which everybody knows is a lie. And the figures, they have been discussing it with the president, but they don't want to talk about it. They won't come up with another appropriation request when there are troops in the field, and then everybody votes for the few $8 billion they have to ask for.
Because of the need to support the troops.
The need to support the troops. Once the guns fight issue, but that would make a few billion annual deficit. Add a few $8 billion, and that would be a new report.
Paul, Mark is not the first one to raise this question about suggesting that the president didn't make the case that peace between the Palestinians and Israel is going to happen by taking out Saddam Hussein in Iraq.
Well, I don't think it is just going to happen. And I don't think that's what he said, but if you look at the history of the Arab-Israeli conflict, which is 50 years old and is intractable. When would we make the most significant progress? I would argue we did with Camp David following the end of the Gulf War, because both sides then said, look, we have to be serious. They looked at America's presence in that region and said, we have to make some progress. I think it's possible that with Saddam removed, it is at least more likely you can make progress than it is now. But I agree it is not going to be easy even then.
Some domestic things after the Miguel Estrada filibuster. What's going on there, Mark?
Gee.
We have to tell people that he's the president's nominee for the Federal Appeals Court here in Washington.
And a Latino.
And a Latino. And the Democrats are filibustering it in the Senate.
Let me quote well-known conservatives, Roy Cohen, the distinguished New York attorney, who said that I don't care what the law is, tell me who the judge is. And Bill Bennett's
your favorite conservative,
Joe McCarthy's lawyer.
See what you have been missing.
Youngest man ever to pass the bar exam.
For people who just woke up, Ray Cohn is
under the age of 70.
Ray Cohn, listen, McCarthy's counsel.
He was a major player, as Bill Bennett said. A judge is just a lawyer who has been blessed by some office holder. This is about politics. Politics straightforward. If the election, according to Matthew Blau, the president's poll strikes you with the same percentage of the electorate that George Bush got in 2004, he got in 2000, he would lose by 1 million votes. Why is that? It's because the electorate is changing. The electorate is no longer what Latinos are growing, Asians are growing, and African Americans are growing as a percentage of the overall electorate. So there's got to be some way of reaching into Latinos. They nominate qualified conservative Latino. Okay, and they want to make the case. If the Democrats resisted and object to it, they're anti-legally. Forget there are 10 Latinos in the appellate bench to make them were appointed by Bill Clinton. But that will be the case. And if he does make it through, then you get credit for appointing a qualified Latino to the Court of Appeals.
Why are the Democrats working so hard to keep him from?
2 reasons. One is he is conservative. This is an ideological choice by president. There's no doubt about that. The president FUE is sailing under the radar in that sense. And if he does get confirmed, it is a prelude to the Supreme Court. Then he has already been confirmed by the Court of Appeals FU for the Court of Appeals. How are you going to turn him down for the Supreme Court?
But Hispanic or not, you are not saying he is not well qualified.
I think he's a qualified fellow.
That's the case the Democrats are not making. The ABA said he's well qualified and he worked in the Solicitor General's office for Bill Clinton for 3 Democratic Solicitor Generals who gave him really outstanding. Use the precise word FU outstanding. I think I agree with Mark in the sense Estrada. This is only a little bit about Estrada. He has a pawn in a much bigger game, which is that the Democrats need to tell their core voters we are going to fight George Bush. They came only out of the last election and said, with the lesson they learned from the last election is not that we didn't fight George Bush enough, but our voters wanted to fight him more. They want to cut and fight him across the board. So we're taking this extraordinary step of requiring 60 votes to approve an appellate judge. Now, the last time that happened for Supreme Court, and that was a Supreme Court judge, Strom Thurmond, and Abe Fortas filibustered for the Supreme Court. This has never happened for the appellate court.
14 times, held since 1980, that have had to use closure to cut off nominations. I don't want to send this Court of Appeals nominations in the Senate. And just to make the point, Richard Dees was the last time they had to bring a closure, and he was a Bill Clinton nominee, a Latino for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. He sat there for 4 years because they wouldn't give him a hearing.
If it is politics, Mark, why are the Democrats filibustering a Latino, which is, you say, is part of the growing electorate of their...
Democrats feel, I think, they have to make their own case. That they can make the case themselves that they stand for the Latinos as opposed to George W. Bush. That's the one gross constituency that the Bush folks that have a shot with because Bush did well when he ran for re-election in Texas. He got almost half the Latino vote in Texas. The problem was nationally he didn't do nearly as well in 2000 and in large part because of California.
They're worried more about entering their base, Jim, and the people who are their core supporters.
Both sides are doing that.
I think Estrada and most core supporters are Republicans. Don't even know who Miguel Estrada is, so this is not an issue. But the judicial nominations are very, very important on the Democratic side, and they've said, look, you have to beat this guy. And the Democrats don't think they'll suffer as much among the broader population because it's an appellate court nomination and it's not going to be that, and there is not going to be that much attention paid to it.
I'm not sure this is a bottom-up. I don't know if there's a lot of, the Latino groups are split. The farm workers and people like that, and the Mexican-American Legal Defense Fund, they are, but I think that this is a macro-political decision.
Macro-political?
Give Tom Dashley credit. He can keep the Democrats united. No question about that. He has proven that. And last time he united them right into the minority. You pay no price if you are a Democratic senator from the Northeast, but some of the Southwest, Southern Democrats, that is a little dicier.
Before we go, there are now 9 candidates, Democratic candidates running for president. Bob Bremes, the senator from Florida, has filed his papers. How do you rate him as a candidate in this race?
Serious man. Nice man. What I have a hard time thinking of is what is the rationale as he fits into the field. You don't see a lot of people saying that there is an issue Bob Graham has.
He's the only one in the race who voted against the resolution to go to war.
There are other people in the field.
Sure,
in the field for that. He is from a big state, which is important, Florida. He reminds me a little bit of the Democratic version of Dick Lehrer from 1996 with the serious good Senate record, but where is the passion not in the rank and file?
Absolutely unbeatable in the very big state. If he had been on the ticket, all due respect to Joe Lieberman, if he was on the ticket in 2000, Al Gore would be president today. He just bring that sense of a cousin. He gives legitimacy to it that the president, who he admitted this week had not gotten enough money from his own Republican Congress for Homeland Defense. He has been the guy on that. He has been Paul Revere on that. This is saying we've got to do more on Homeland Defense. We've got to do more for protecting against terrorism here at home.
And speaking of home, we have to say goodbye. And if you've been missing us,
I act without Mark to keep me on my toes. I have been slacking off. Good to get back in here.
Get the blood going. Thank you both. Again, the major developments of this dagger are confirmed it was ready to begin destroying some advanced missiles. Starting tomorrow, France and Germany said it was proof that inspections can work. The US and Britain dismissed it as Maldives, and thousands of people protested against a possible Iraq war in the Philippines and several Arab countries. A reminder, Washington Week can be seen on most KSC stations later this evening. We'll see you all on it again here Monday evening. Have a nice weekend. I'm Jim Lehrer. Thank you and good night.
Major funding for the NewsHour with Jim Lehrer has been provided by
SBC Communications. SBC's nearly 190,000 people are proud of what they've built and how they've built it. A big company, a big responsibility, infinite service. SBC.
This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
To purchase video cassettes of the NewsHour with Jim Lehrer, call 1-866-678-NEWS.
We are PBS.